Good evening, Year 10 parents and students. Welcome to the information evening this year for Year 10. Obviously in different circumstances to what we are normally used to. This event is normally in the hall with myself, head teacher, and a couple of other members of senior staff. Obviously with the situation this year, we're unable to do that, so obviously we've had to do it online. A couple of housekeeping things before I go any further. I just need to make sure that everyone at home has turn their camera off and turn their microphone off. It just helps with the feedback coming through on the system here. Before I go any further, I just want to say to all the parents and the students out there how proud I am of the year group so far, especially with the way they've come back after the COVID situation. For those parents that aren't aware, my office is right in the middle of the Year 10 zone this year. And it's been really beneficial for me to go in and out of lessons all the time and see how well the students are engaging, and obviously being able to help with any issues that they may have as well. Before I forget, I just want to say in terms of having questions tonight, there is a chat box facility and it's on the tab that says live Q&A. Myself and Miss Young will try our best to monitor and answer some questions that you may have. If we think a question is worth sharing to you all, we will try and do that. However, if you think a question is more private, we will prefer it if you contact me at nf@nortoncollege.net, and I will try and get back to you as soon as possible with any other concerns you have. But it's the live Q&A facility that you should click on if you have any questions. In a moment, I'm going to pass over to Mr. Johnson, head teacher, and Mrs. Young, assistant head teacher for curriculum and assessment, and they're going to go through the details of what this evening is about. Some key messages that we give, some is for the parents because some of the students have already heard it, but it's really beneficial that we go through that again so everyone's on board and singing from the same hymn sheet. At the end of the day, it is about trying to progress the students from Year 10 to Year 11 and working towards those GCSE exams to try and make them as successful as possible. If they carry on the way they've started, I'm really confident that we'll be able to achieve fantastic results come next year. I'll now pass over to Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friars. So it gives me real pleasure to introduce myself to you, if not in person, then at least virtually, as the new head teacher at Norton College. I've been at the college since September. Actually, I spoke to students on their first day back from the period of the lockdown. I've been at the college for a day and a half every week during the first half term, but as I've said in my letters over the past few weeks, it's only been this half term that I've been able to be at the college on a permanent basis, and it's lovely to be here. It's been great to be welcomed in the way that I have been. As Mr. Friars was saying, Year 10 is a tremendous year group, really pleased to work with them, really impressed by the way in which they conduct themselves around the college as a whole, and the kind of COVID arrangements, which are very changed, as you're yourselves very aware. They've been enormously respectful of those, and the kind of ready, respectful, safe, which you can see on your screen there, is very much a principle that they've abided by as we've moved through. I can't promise that things are going to get to a normality anytime particularly soon, but we are hopeful that that will happen certainly by around about Easter, when all of the vaccinations and so on have been rolled out. But certainly in the interim period, it is as normal as it can be at this point in time. And I would really echo Mr. Friars' thanks and how impressive the year group have been. So a really good start to what is a really important year for that cohort. What I wanted to do really was to introduce myself to you in terms of kind of who am I, and you've had a little bit of that in the letters that I've sent home, and really what my intent is for the college, my vision for the college and for the school over the next few years. I think it's important to share that with you as parents. My background is that I've been teaching for 28 years. I'm an English teacher. I've had best part of 20 years on leadership teams, and the last 15 years I've worked at Fulford School in York, where I was originally an assistant head teacher, and then for the past 8 years the deputy head teacher at the school. Fulford School is a school which we moved to outstanding from good and Ofsted terms, and just this weekend it was actually voted the comprehensive school of the decade across the whole of England by the Sunday Times. So that gives a sense of kind of where the school moved over the past 10 or 15 years. And alongside that, I've done a wide range of outreach work with other schools. I've done a lot of work for the Department for Education. So I'm trying to draw upon that experience really to kind of shape where I would like Norton College to be over the next 5 to 10 years, really, and how we can build on the existing strengths at the college in making the college even better. So I'm going to start just by taking you through what I would see as being my intent for Norton and what I want the college to be. And much of this is already in place, but it's not quite where I would visualize it being in the near future. So I would look to create a vibrant, inclusive, caring and safe environment where children thrive academically and socially, and which is universally recognised as outstanding. That's very much where I would want Norton College to be. And how do you get there? Well, by developing a love of learning and achieving the best possible outcomes for all students. And that love of learning for me is really important. I want Norton to be a centre of teaching and learning excellence, where children don't simply come and do the work that they need to do, but where they really enjoy that, and where we create an environment which is really conducive to learning, which kind of feeds learning in the future and outside of school as students progress on to whatever destination they go to. To offer a breadth of subjects and knowledge and develop a wide range of skills which are useful in wider life. I think it's really important that students not only do well in school and do well in particular subjects, but that they do that across a wide range of subjects and can see how those are going to feed into whatever job they do in the future. For people like me or Mr. Fryers or Mrs. Young, we've gone into education ourselves, but for most people, you don't channel your kind of experience in school directly into a specific subject area in the way that we have, and we've got to make sure that that's clear to students how they will feed into their future lives, their future jobs, their future vocations. And alongside that, developing well-rounded young people who are tolerant and respectful and are genuinely able to make a positive contribution to society. I want to be able to go out of the college and see students 10 years from now and feel that they are genuinely rounded and likeable and well prepared people, not simply people who've got qualifications which have been the passport to success, and they are very much that, but also people who understand and respect others, whatever their diversity might be. In terms of how would I look to lead things? Well, systems to me are really important. Those systems might be behavioural systems, they might be personal development systems, they might be curricular systems, and there are a number of changes that I've already put in place just to kind of shore up and secure those systems so that everyone is part of the kind of machinery, if you like, of the college and can see where they fit into those cogs that you can see on the screen, really, so that we all work effectively together. There was an advert a few years ago for Honda where they talked about how basically when things work, you almost don't notice why and how they do. And systems really underpin that within my own philosophy. But we do look to nurture, and one of the things that really appealed to me about Norton when I came for a visit and for my interview was this idea of the family feel. And I think that's really crucial here and something that really attracts me to the school, not something that I would want to lose by any means. And that idea of, as you can see on the screen there, nurturing the student and growing the student into the kind of wider person ready for wider life is really integral to my vision for the school. This is an image that you will be familiar with. This is the idea of aspiration. I really like the acronym of Aspire. Ambition really lies at the heart of everything that I'm looking to do already at Norton College. And in the middle of that image, you've got the idea of working hard. And I know that with experience as a parent, my own two children, through genuinely working hard, they've succeeded. And that runs across the whole college. It's not something that necessarily comes naturally to everyone to succeed. It's something underpinned by really hard work. And that's a principle which is fed by that love of learning I was talking about just now. So if I look across the Aspire values, there was a question in my interview actually about which of the Aspire values I thought was the most important. And I think that's quite a difficult question, but the one that I think I'd cited at the time was pride, because fundamentally, if you've managed all of those other Aspire values, then I think you would look back and be proud of that. My parents and my grandparents always used to say to me, all you can do is your best, and I would stand by that. But really, those other aspects of the Aspire values, those are fundamental to doing your best, and working hard is integral to that as well. And if we breed students who are in that position where they do all of those things, I think quite genuinely they can look back with pride upon what they've achieved. So as older students in the college, I think it's really important that Year 10 pupils see themselves as role models. And one of the areas that I'm already looking to promote more widely across the college are British values. These are fundamental British values which lie at the heart of the curriculum which is laid out for us by the Department for Education. And I very much stand by these things here. I will be doing some assemblies on the rule of law next week to students. There have been assemblies already around democracy and the way in which that would work. But I think the two areas that for me are possibly the most important here are around respect and tolerance. And I think diversity is a really good thing, and I absolutely will not tolerate things like bullying or racism or homophobia. I think the whole nature of British society is an eclectic mix of various people from various backgrounds, and celebrating that diversity is something that will lie at the heart really of the values that I look to instill across the college. I've already talked through a number of different things with students, and these are some slides from an assembly that I did a couple of weeks ago. The behaviour slide at the top left that you can see there reflects really a sense of where we are, despite the fact that students are having to adapt to new rules, to being in lines, to the idea of being in bubbles. Actually, the statistics we have around behaviour are really strong this year, and much stronger than they were at the same time last year. In terms of charter breaks and removals from lessons, although they do happen on occasion, unfortunately, we deal with those. The sanction system is very clear, and they are significantly down on where they were last year. And teaching staff reflect that themselves, despite the rigid kind of expectations we've got around safety. Actually, what we're seeing is a really compliant group of students who are working really well with us. I would draw attention to the school buses. School buses, obviously we need students to be wearing their face coverings when they're on there. There have been some issues around litter on the school buses, and you can see an image, that's an image, the one in the middle, from a school bus. And I would just ask you to reinforce the need that students do comply with our expectations on the bus. Generally, they very much do, but it is for some students quite a long journey, and it's really important that we have them comply with our expectations there. Punctuality is an area that I just wanted to tighten a little at the beginning of my time at Norton. And so we do have now expectations that students are on time, and if they're not, that 3 times in a half term they would be put into an after school detention. And leaving site is just something I would emphasise with you as parents, and ask you to re-emphasise with your children that once they come into the school site, whether it be on a bus or on foot, they are our legal responsibility, and we cannot have students leaving the site. There's very few who have looked to do that, and there are none who are doing it at the moment, because it is a change that has been put in place over the course of this last half term in particular. They cannot leave the site once they've come on. So beyond that, on a really positive note, the canteen access, that's been difficult because of the bubble nature that we have to run at the college. We are in the process of moving to full canteen access for students, albeit on a rota basis. So as you can see on there, that credit card system is one that we're looking to introduce, and cards will be issued to students through mentor time over the course of the next week. They'll use that in order that they don't have to put their thumb onto the screen in the way that they would do ordinarily. So those will be issued. If you could look to just load up parent pay with some credit for students if they're looking to use the canteen, that would be really helpful to us as well. But ultimately, Year 10 offers a real opportunity. School life is a real opportunity. I've seen it with my own children. I think as a parent you see it, and it changes your perception maybe of the school in which you work. Clearly, they will only get this one go at it, but they have got a great opportunity in a really good school to really make the world their oyster. And that's exactly what this is, a chance to go on and succeed and take advantage of so many different things at the college. Success is not something that goes in the line that you see on the left. Sometimes the way that we report, because we have to, will look like it does, or it may look like it doesn't. The image on the right is much more akin to kind of the way that success works. But ultimately, it all moves in a similar direction. We know that students are going to have some setbacks over the course of their time here, and we will be working really closely with them on resilience and how to deal with those problems as they encounter them. And that's a quotation. I really like quotations that mean something, and success being the sum of all of the small efforts repeated day in and day out, I think is really integral to my fundamental belief of how students will succeed themselves. There is a saying, a cliche, that Rome wasn't built in a day, and I quite often add to that they laid bricks every day when they were building it though. And that's really important, that students see that what they do tomorrow, period one tomorrow, at the beginning of period one tomorrow, all of those tiny parts come together to make the whole of the success. And that's a principle that I want to run across the college, not one which is interventionist at year 11, where gaps that maybe have occurred over the course of years 7 to 10 can be addressed at a late stage, but a prevention model where we look to create a model where people are working on a daily basis as hard as they can, so that when they get to year 11, they genuinely do justice to themselves when they reach their exams. And before I hand over to Mrs. Young, again, this is a quotation that I've come back to many times over the course of my career. The idea that the pen is mightier than the sword. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education underpins success in life, success across the world, everything that we are, everything that's good about the world. And Nelson Mandela said that he wasn't embittered by the process of incarceration when in South Africa, instead saw education as the way forward. And for me, it absolutely is that. And that's a principle that I will look to put at the fore in everything that I do at Norton College. So that's kind of a bit about me and my vision for the college. I'm really excited to be here. It's lovely to have been welcomed in the way that I have. It's been great to get to know some of the year 10s, and I really look forward to working with you as parents and meeting you in person at some point in the near future. So before I take you through some of the target setting system, I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Young, who's going to talk through the curriculum with you. Mrs. Young.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I'm Mrs. Young. I'm an assistant head teacher for curriculum and assessment. Now I'm going to talk to you about all things Key Stage 4 curriculum tonight. So all students will sit with 3 subjects that are on your screen now, the core subjects. So in English, students will sit an English language and English literature GCSE. That'll be 2 exams at the end of year 11. There's no tiers, there's no higher or foundation papers in English. So all students sit the same examinations in literature and language. And the full range of the grades 1 to 9 are available. In maths, students will sit either the higher tier or the foundation tier. In the higher tier, students can achieve grades 9 to 4, and in foundation grades 5 to 1. And there are 3 papers that students will sit for maths at the end of year 11. And then in science, all students sit the double award. And again, they get 2 GCSEs, and it will be reported as a 5-5 or a 7-6. It won't necessarily be the same grade duplicated. But again, like maths, there'll be a higher and a foundation tier, where the grades 9 to 4 are available on the higher and 5 to 1 on the foundation paper. We don't decide who sits the higher and foundation paper until year 11. So those things aren't set in stone, and teachers won't decide that now. Students will also have the option, option subjects as well throughout the GCSE course. Thank you. So all GCSE subjects are now linear examinations, there's no coursework, and they're all assessed on the 9-to-1 scale. Only French and Spanish have foundation and higher tier papers. All other subjects are similar to English, where the full grades are available on those papers. So the grading system is maybe something that's a little bit, we're still a little bit unsure of because it's 9-to-1 now rather than A star to G. So I've just talked to you about the grading and what this looks like. So when we look at the top grades, the 9, 8 and 7, when we look at that, we compare that to an A star and an A in the old grading system. And broadly, the same proportion of students will achieve a grade 7, which would have achieved a grade 8 in the old system. And then if we look at the 6, 5 and 4, these grades are equivalent to a grade C or a bottom third of a grade B. The Department of Education have determined that a grade 5 will be a strong pass and that grade 4 will be a standard pass. And then the bottom of the grading system, a grade 1, is aligned to the bottom of the grade G. And you'll have received this with the estimated grades that were sent home to you as well. If you have any questions about that, please do let us know. Students will also sit the core exams, core GCSEs, optional GCSEs, and also some non-GCSE subjects, which will be their BTECs. So all BTECs now have one examination throughout the course. So it's a written exam for all subjects apart from performing arts, where that is a practical exam that students will sit throughout the 2-year course. So beyond this examination, the rest is coursework, which is assessed throughout the course. And these courses are graded level 1, pass merit distinction, or level 2, pass merit distinction. And if we sort of compare these grades to the number grades that we get at GCSE, you can see on your screen now in the purple box what this would equate to. So level 2 distinction star will be similar to your grade 9 and grade 8, and your level 1 pass will be your grade 1 or the old G grade at the end. So we know throughout the course and the GCSEs, you really want to help your child succeed, and we know there's a real urge that you want to help and buy revision guides. And I just want to say to you, because please beware on the study guides that you are buying. There are a lot out there, and some of them aren't always what we recommend as subject teachers. Every child this morning in Mentor Time received a booklet, which is titled Yes Information Evening, which looks like it does on the screen now. And in that booklet, it's got every course that the students can sit, which tells you about the title, the exam board, the higher and foundation tiers, and also how much is assessed by examinations and how many exams there are for each subject, and also the requirements, just so you've got a point of reference and your child's got a point of reference throughout the year, especially when we're building up to mock examinations and the real examinations. So think about the revision guides. At the back of this booklet, we've got a list of recommended revision guides and websites, all from subject teachers here. So we know you want to help your child revise, and that's really important, but these are the guides that we recommend. Teachers will also offer their own resources, a lot with revision as well, because please bear that in mind. So alongside that, home learning is really important at Key Stage 4. It's a key to being successful at the end of Year 11. So one piece of home learning is set per week per subject. Apart from science, that will be set 3 times a fortnight due to the nature of the subjects, the 3 subjects, and the different teachers that they have. All our home learning is set on Microsoft Teams this year, but it does need to be completed on paper unless it's a quiz that some teachers set on Teams. Each piece of learning, each piece of home learning, is set on Teams to take around 30 minutes. It's really important that students spend that longer time on each subject. And then on the next slide, there's a home learning timetable, which will be in each student planner. So we see this at the start of the year, and you can see this how we guide what home learning we set on each day. And I've put the option teach and subjects for you at the bottom, so you can see what you'd expect on each day. And as you can see there, they get 1 piece of home learning a day and no more than 2. And it's really important that this home learning is completed. Teachers think carefully about the home learning they set, It's set to contribute to the course as revision and extra practice to really make sure that they're successful at the end of Key Stage 4. Just some key dates for you. So 3 times a year we send monitoring reports home. These are going to look slightly different to what they looked like in Key Stage 3. So these will now have a predicted grade for every subject for the end of Year 11 and their current commitment to learning grade, rather than just the commitment to learning grade and the progress measure. So you can see at 3 points in the year the progress your child's making and if they're on target to achieve the grade that they really want to and really deserve to achieve by the end of Year 11. So the first monitoring report will be with you week commencing the 14th of December. And as Mr. Fry has mentioned earlier, if you have any concerns or questions when you receive that report, please do email Mr. Fryers and we will get back to you with any concerns or clarifications that you might need. And just for a further date in the future, parents evening for Year 10 is scheduled to be on the 25th of March. And then just some last dates for you. The 7th of January, if your child studies music, they have a real Unit 1 exam on the 7th of January. And then week commencing the 21st of June, we have mock exams scheduled for Year 10. Now, obviously, we don't know where we'll be with the current COVID-19 situation, but we have to assume that all exams will go ahead. So we're going to practice those exams in that summer term this year. And students will receive support around revision, how to revise and how important that is throughout the year through a mentor and assemblies. But if you have any questions about anything, please do let us know. And I'll hand you back to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. So as I just said, I am going to take you through something around some of the terminology, because there's a lot of kind of jargon within GCSE and the kind of grades and figures that you get home, and I want them to mean something to you. I've gone through this with the students. I'm actually going through an assembly that I went through with students, with you as the parents. I think it's important you understand the language in the same way as the children do. So Fisher Family Trust Estimated Grade is what it's titled, but I'm going to talk this through with reference to the X factor as a kind of analogy to get a sense of kind of how these might work. Statistics and kind of target grades, which is what these will often be described as, though they're actually called estimated grades. Statistics are something which have real strength. They're objective. They give us a sense of how have others who are similar to us performed in the past, but there is a limitation around them because statistics are not personal. So your child may well find that the grades that are issued don't seem to be specifically relevant to him or to her, but actually they are, because there's an objectivity to them as a starting point. And if I take this through a different analogy to the X factor in the first instance, I might ask you who that is, and I've asked students that in the assembly, and that is actually Johnny Peacock, so winner of the 2012 100 metres Paralympic race, gold medal, and you can see on the left hand side there winning that race. And on the right hand side is my son Calvin, who's just gone off to university. He's 18 now. And the question that I've asked students here, which I would not have expected them to be able to answer, is what links my son and Johnny Peacock. But what links them together is that both of them, when they were younger, were given under 10% chance of survival. So Johnny Peacock on the left there had meningitis as a child, and that's why he had his right leg amputated as a consequence of complications with that meningitis. But when he fell ill with meningitis, they did not expect him to succeed. And my son on the right hand side was born about a month early, and when he was born his lungs were underdeveloped and he couldn't breathe, and so within the first 20 minutes of his life he had to go into a kind of baby crash machine and be effectively brought back to life, and they didn't expect him to survive. And so that under 10% chance of survival statistically said that they both would do very, very well simply to survive and to live beyond that point. But as you can see and hear from what I'm saying, Johnny Peacock, great success in the Paralympics. My son has gone off to Sheffield University to study medicine just this year. So statistics, yet they're objective, they give you a starting point, but there are always people who will very much buck the trend in the way that Johnny Peacock and Calvin, my son, have done. And there's no reason why, in terms of the statistics that you get, those children who might look at those grades and feel that they don't reflect themselves, well, why can't they back that trend? They very much can. So I said to you I'd talk through the X Factor, and I can't pretend to be a massive fan of the X Factor, but I have to admit that I have watched it on occasion, and you can see there an array of X Factor winners from the past, and you'll recognise some of them, and some of them you really won't, unless you're a die-hard fan, which I would claim not to be. But you can see on there an array of people, so Leona Lewis, Little Mix, James Arthur, people who've gone on to great success. They all won the X Factor. But you may not recognise Leon Jackson on the top right, and you may not recognise Steve Brookstein on the bottom left. But they all have the same starting point. They all won the X Factor. So if Fisher Family Trust, the organisation that generates these estimated grades for us, if they did that around the X Factor, they would look at all of those people and they would work through kind of how successful has each of them been. And we know that, say, Little Mix run they've got a Saturday night primetime TV show, great success story. Leona Lewis, a kind of global celebrity superstar. Leon Jackson, you've probably never heard of. They'd look at the success of all those people, merge it together and come up with an average. So they would put it together, and what would they come up with? Well, not that. Little Mix going on this tour of great big stadia all across the country. That's not the average. That's well beyond the average. And Steve Brookstein, who is pouring his heart out to the Guardian here about how the X Factor destroyed his life, that's not the average either in terms of likely success. It's somewhere kind of bang in the middle of those two. So Fisher Family Trust give us a good starting point because it's an average likely success, but it is only a starting point. And the vocabulary that you're going to hear around gradings that go home, it all sits on there. And for us as teachers, sometimes it becomes second nature, but it's really important that we allow you to understand it and that students understand it as well. So what do those things mean? Well, the estimates, these are what Fisher Family Trust produce. It's based upon a student's achievement at Key Stage 2. And for us at Norton College, it shows how the top 5% of similar students who got similar outcomes when they sat the SATs in Year 6 have performed at GCSE in the past. So why do we go for the top 5%? Well, because we are aspirational. You can see that in the top right. And I said earlier, it's got to mean something. It's all very well for us to say we want to aspire and be ambitious. We've got to underpin that with meaning. And that's why we go for the top 5% of similar students' outcomes at GCSE in the past. Predictions are what are produced by your child's teachers. And those are professional judgments of what the child is likely to achieve based upon his or her performance over the course itself. And clearly that will become a little more refined as we go on, because we'll get more and more information over the course of Year 10 and then Year 11 about how your child is likely to achieve. What I'll say to teachers there is it shouldn't be motivational, it shouldn't be kind of above where we might expect them to be, nor should it be a kind of kick in the right direction if they're not performing as strongly as we might expect them to be. It should be effectively, what would you put your mortgage on that child achieving? Assessment grades, those are going to be a kind of live working grade. We won't be reporting those home in reports, but they will very much inform that predicted grade that will be on any report. And that's the teacher's professional judgment about where the child is now, the assessment grade, and where is that likely to lead if they continue as they currently are at the end of the course, and that's the prediction. And then the target is where it says produced by you. This is the assembly for the student, so produced by the student and based upon the estimates, the predictions, the assessments, and then some realistic ambition as well. Really wanting to be the very best that you can be. And that raising aspiration across the college is something that I'm going to have at the very core of everything that I look to do here. So Fisher Family Trust will use students' Key Stage 2 achievement, that's the SATs that they sat when they were in Year 6, in order to estimate the grade that statistically they're most likely to achieve in each subject at the end of Year 11. As I just said, we will use the estimated grades which show how the top 5% of students nationally with similar Key Stage 2 results have achieved in each subject in the past. So there is a real sense of aspiration there. But there's got to be someone in that top 5%. And why can't that be you? And I would argue, why can't you be in the top 1%? Again, there has to be someone there. It's not an empty kind of statistic. It's a statistic which is filled by people. And why can't you be one of those people? They're not, though, predictions. So those grades have been sent home. They certainly shouldn't be something for which your child is congratulated or berated. It's neither of those things. It's a statistical benchmark against which we will work over the course of the next 2 years. They are estimates for the end of year 11. So if we're looking at kind of current working levels, very unlikely that students are going to be working at that estimated level at this point in time. It is going to take time to develop those skills, the knowledge, the understanding that's required to get to those outcomes, and students can't expect to achieve them straight away. But those bricks I was talking about earlier that you lay in the kind of building of Rome, if you like, those need to come every single day, and that kind of that accumulation of little successes lead to ultimately achieving these levels or going beyond them. And for most students, they do represent a target to aim towards. For a small number of students, that wouldn't be the case, but for the massive majority, they very much do. So why do we use them? Well, as I said at the beginning, they're objective. It's statistical facts. It's a good starting point for students' own targets. They shouldn't be intimidated by them. As I just said, 5% of similar students nationally have achieved these grades. So why can't that be your child? Aspire is something that sits at the top of this screen, but really is all around the school. And that is why we're using these top 5% estimates, because we are looking to aspire genuinely to be the very best that you can be academically here. It's a good base against which to compare results, and it is an indication of potential, but it is not the only indication of potential. As I said at the beginning, everyone is different. Children are going to mature at different rates and progress at different rates, and they are all different. I will just drop into this a point about attendance at this stage. Clearly, you'll see that nationally, attendance at school has understandably been much, much lower than it would normally be at this point in time. That's a consequence of COVID, and we here have had far fewer cases of COVID than nationally is the case. But we have had them here, and there have been a small number of students who have needed to self-isolate. And clearly that is something that we can't do anything about, nor would it be right to do anything about. If your child is unwell, then your child should obviously stay at home. But statistically, and again, this is an objective fact, 17 days off in a year, so this is just going below 90% attendance, leads to an average drop of a full grade across each GCSE subject. That's a statistic in non-COVID years, but nevertheless one that I think is really significant. In almost every subject, a percentage achievement of 88, 89% would get to a grade 9. But in terms of attendance, that kind of number is very much lower than the national average. So what I say to the students here, and when I say to anyone that I talk about this to, is when I was at secondary school myself, quite genuinely, I'd not done a homework one day. I didn't want to go in, and so I feigned illness. I faked illness, and quite honest about this now. Pretended I had a stomachache that morning. My dad came in, found me on the floor. I was obviously a very good actor, because it ended up with me in the doctor's surgery, and the doctor was really concerned, sent me off to hospital. And I can remember very clearly, aged 11, I'm 50 now, so best part of 40 years ago, I can still remember the one operation that I've had in my life where I was lying there thinking I probably should come clean at this point, that I haven't actually got a stomachache, but I didn't, and I had my appendix removed for absolutely no reason, simply because I didn't really fancy going to school that day. That's a very extreme end of the spectrum, of course, but there are always going to be days where it would seem much easier to stay at home. If I go back to that analogy of laying bricks every single day, well, if you're missing a couple of bricks in the wall isn't an effective one. And that's why really being in school as much as we possibly can be is really integral to success academically. There will be times, as I say, where students can't be in, and if your child is ill, then your child is ill and needs to stay at home. But that's an important statistic for me to share with students, and I'm sharing it with you, obviously, as their parents as well. And this is a quotation that I come back to really regularly. You'll see it ultimately displayed around the college because I really stand by this. And Michelangelo knew a little bit about success. The designer, the painter of the Sistine Chapel, if you've not been there before, the Vatican, it is the most incredible place. And he said the greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it's too low and we reach it. And that really underpins the sense of aspiration, aiming to be the best that you can possibly be. If you don't quite get there, you don't quite get there. But as my nan and as my mum have always said to me, you've tried your very best and you've done justice to yourself. And that is what I want of students at Norton College. I share the image of the bumblebee really widely. Why do I do that? Well, because the bumblebee statistically, according to the laws of physics, should not be able to fly. Its body is too big for its little wings, and yet we know from that picture and what we see all summer, the bumblebee, of course, can fly, and it defies those odds. And going back to the point about being in the top 5% or even the top 1% of similar students, why can't that be you? Why can't you defy those odds? You very much can. The future starts now, and this is a real opportunity for your children to really shape their future, their success, their destination, their later life. We work in partnership with you. I'm really grateful for you attending this, albeit virtually, and I really look forward to meeting you in person as soon as we possibly can. And the future ultimately is in everyone's hands. And if you look at the left-hand side there, I'm not sure my son is going to be the Prime Minister, but that was his yearbook when he was in year 13 last year. My son, who was given a less than 10% chance of survival, now studying medicine at Sheffield to become a doctor. And I'm incredibly proud of him, and he's worked so hard to get there. Little Mix on the right-hand side, again, I'm sure their parents are equally proud of them. They've defied the odds, if you like, of the X Factor and like the outcomes there. The future is in your children's hands, and I would, at this point, hand over to any questions, and Mr. Friars is just going to take us through some of those if we have any. Mr. Friars, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, thank you. We've had no questions that we need to publish to everyone. As I said before, if you want to email me at nf@nortoncollege.net with anything at all, you can do that and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I hope you found this evening beneficial with all the information that's been presented from Mr. Johnson and Miss Young. It really is sort of a three-way triangle. I always say that to the students, so it's about the students, the parents, and obviously us here as staff, to try and get the best outcomes for those students moving forward towards year 11. Again, thank you for your time this evening. Have a good evening. Bye.